Welcome to our show, Mind and Body with Dr. Shah. This is our first show. This is the first episode of our show. This is a weekly show. Today is a special edition of our show. Usually this show will be in Urdu, but today it is in English because we have a esteemed guest here today who we are going to talk about the concept of this show. So let me explain a little bit about our show and the concept. As the name shows viewers, Mind and Body, this show is about illnesses related to mind and body. We will talk about mental health. We will talk about stigma associated with mental health. We will also talk about some education related to mental health and what options, treatments are available. When you think about that, and I live in Houston and I live in Fort Bend County, there is one name which comes to my mind, which is our judge of Fort Bend County. He is the first elected South Asian judge in Texas, and he has been a voice for mental health in our county. Let me introduce you to our first guest, KP George, Judge KP George. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. And I remember before you took oath, I remember that day when that we started the discussion about mental health and what can we do to improve the lives of our people in Fort Bend County. So how did you agree with that? How did you come up with that idea? Because I remember I called you, you were very open, you were very welcoming. What were your thoughts about mental health at that time? I know now you know a lot more, but even then, what were your thoughts?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be here in your show and on your show, I mean. And I don't know you remember, I was Fort Bend ISD trustee for four and a half, almost 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we have around 76,000 students, and mental health is an issue. And we actually, many times we talked about it, looked at it. And so one thing what happened is, as a Fort Bend ISD trustee, in many times I felt like I was placed in a box. I can only talk or I can only do so much. But as a county judge, I create my own box. And so I thought this is an issue. First of all, I realized it's so important we acknowledge we have an issue. So
that is the first step.
That is many times, many institutions, especially school districts and other entities, they don't want to accept we have an issue, because they feel like, then people look at us like, we have this issue, because of that we are maybe any different, things of that nature. So
the stigma.
Right, stigma, exactly. And so I thought it is important we acknowledge we have an issue. And then I always say that, I'm not an expert in everything. I don't need to be. And when it comes to mental health, I go to Dr. Shah. So
thank you.
So the thing about it is, we have experts, we have people live in Fort Bend County who care about Fort Bend County and Fort Bend County citizens. Mm-hmm. And so it is only my common sense to tap into you and people like you and look to do what we can do to make a difference. Because in my opinion, our issue is much smaller than our surrounding counties.
True.
And address it when it is small.
Yeah. So just for the viewers to know, Fort Bend County is one of the most diverse county in the country, right?
Yeah.
And it's very fast growing.
Absolutely.
And expected population in
20... Fort Bend County is established in 1837.
Wow.
Okay, and we only had few people started it, 300 families invited by Stephen F. Austin, and they came and settled across both sides of Brazos River. That's where everything started. And then obviously in 1970, we only had 52,000 people. But as of now, we are looking at around 790,000 people, and we grew exponentially. And in that growth, we attracted so many people from all over the world.
Very diverse.
122 languages are spoken in Fort Bend County. And so,
is there any other county like that with 122 languages? Not to my knowledge.
No, we always claim we are, but I'm sure maybe someplace, I don't know, maybe there is a county in city of New York area, and they said it is similar or matching or something like that. But otherwise, we are maybe on the top.
But I think the difference would be Fort Bend County somehow attracts educated people,
That's right.
affluent people,
Right.
and that is
Yeah.
a big difference, I think, right?
We are most diverse, and we are one of the well-to-do counties in the
Mhm.
country, and fastest growing, and best. One of the reason when it comes to immigrants, we have some of the best, graduation rate in our middle,
Yeah.
middle
Best schools.
elementary,
Great
high
schools.
school, best schools, and that continue to attracting good quality people.
Mhm.
And we, with all this diversity and difference, Fort Bend is one of the safest place to live.
Very good.
And according to 2017 numbers, we have 29.1% of Fort Bend residents are not born in this country.
Wow. That's
And
one
now
third.
it is much about 30%, I could tell.
Yeah.
And after census, we will come to know what is that
But
percentage
it
is.
definitely would be more than 29%.
Absolutely,
It's
it is
not
more
gonna
than
be less.
30% now.
Yes, it's
and
gonna
and
be
so,
more. So
but
it's one
beautiful thing about it is these immigrants, unlike some people talk about,
Mhm.
they are one of the most contributing group of people. They contributed $11 billion to Fort Bend County's economy
Wow.
and paid $610 million in taxes. This is all 2017 numbers.
So the numbers would be even more in 18,
Much
19,
higher,
and-
much higher.
Yeah.
And so interesting thing is the collective buying power of these foreign-born people living in Fort Bend County and calling it home, $7 billion of buying power, which
Wow.
is equivalent to 36% of Fort Bend County's total buying power. So this is a place where people come and call it home and embrace it. And like I said, one of the safest place to live.
Sure.
And we have much lower incidence of mental health issues and
So
other
let's just
issues.
go to that. If you think about mental health in US, we say that 1 in 4 of the people suffer from mental illness. That's 25%. That's a big number.
Yeah.
When you think about South Asians, the myth is that Southeast Asian countries, which we all came from and belong, immigrants here, the incidence is low. And I think that is a myth.
It is.
Why
It is.
it is a myth? Because somehow it is not culturally accepted
That's the
that
point.
somebody will
Yeah.
go and say, oh, I have depression,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I have anxiety.
Yeah.
People feel that Southeast Asians don't use substances,
Yeah.
don't use alcohol.
Yeah.
That is another myth.
Yeah.
They do everything. In this country, we have 20 million people with depression,
Yeah.
40 million people with anxiety,
Yeah.
so many people using substances. And one of the purpose of this program
Yeah.
is to clear that myth
Bring
that
awareness.
yes, reduce stigma and clear the myth that Southeast Asians are no prone to anything. They
Anything.
can have anything. They're the
Right.
same human beings as
And
any
actually, Dr. Shah, I wanted to bring it to your attention 2 years ago, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago. I don't remember exactly which year it was. AARP
Mhm.
invited me for a study. I didn't do the study, but they wanted to present their study. And the study was they've come to find out a high percentage of mental health, in the sense anxiety, depression, all this stuff
Even
associated with South Asian senior citizens.
Wow.
This is higher than 50%.
Mhm.
Okay, it's a big. So they wanted to know
What's going on?
what is going on, and they did a study. They presented to a group of invited South Asian people,
Sure.
community leaders and stuff like that. That was really an eye-opening.
Another thing you may know more than other people, since we have served in the Fort Bend school district, kids, teenagers, adolescents, they have a higher incidence of depression. And I see that in South Asians more so. Why? Because every South Asian parents wants their kids to be a doctor, engineer, excel in
And
study,
valedictorian
and valedictorian,
too. Yeah.
and all of that. It's not possible, right?
And-
It's not possible. So when you put so much pressure at your child, what's
Yeah.
going to happen?
Yeah.
They get depressed, they get
Yeah.
anxious, or
Yeah.
some even go
And
towards hurting themselves.
that is exactly right.
So
And
how do you deal with that? That's a big problem,
Dr. Shah, I honestly think we need to, like you said a few minutes ago, we are not prone. We are not anything
Different.
Yeah, different.
we're
we are
the
just
same.
human beings.
We're human beings.
And our problem is we are not even, many of us doesn't even try to learn what is going on in this country. He came and took the money, and we wanted to good money and good house and cars and all that stuff, which is fine.
All
That's-
black Mercedeses and all of that.
That's right. And so, because what happened is, when we go back in our town or city, wherever we live, maybe one guy had a Mercedes,
Mhm.
and everybody looked at that car. So
Yeah,
now I could
so
buy.
That was
so-
a dream, and now you can get it, and now you have it.
Right. And so I always say that there's nothing wrong in enjoying. You came this far on the other side of the world, enjoying your fruit of your labor. There's nothing wrong, but don't act like you don't have any problem. And this is another issue. And I always hear that, schools, parents put a lot of pressure on their children, and they are depressed, they behave differently, and they're never willing to address the real issue. And I remember, for example, you mentioned about alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
Alcoholism is a major problem.
Major problem. Yeah.
And the thing about
it is, we minimize it. We hide it.
Yeah, our community doesn't want to talk about it. And I have personal experiences with that. And so the point is, I believe you asked me the question. I believe it is better we acknowledge and let's have a conversation about it, and let's
do something about it. Provide resources about it.
That's right.
These are treatable diseases.
That's right.
But the first step still is awareness.
Right.
If you accept you're aware, you can treat.
Right.
Another thing, we were talking about kids, and we'll come back on that after the break. But to me, the biggest problem is when we see kids, and we as parents, South Asian parents, we put difficult boundaries, difficult expectations on our child. Everybody wants their kid to be physicians, engineers and all of that. It's just not easy. We need to make it easy for our kids.
Sure.
Why? Because if we don't, then it's a big problem. The other issue is we came here to a different country. Rather than being assimilated, we still want our kids to marry per our choice as opposed to their choice, which puts another pressure on kids.
Right.
And we'll talk about that in the next segment. But I think these are all really legitimate issues which cause depression, mental health issues. And I'm so glad we're talking about it, because the whole purpose of this program is to talk about these issues so that people think about it and reduce stigma.
And I always believed this, especially as a school board member. I come to find out there is a lot of us come to this country for the well-being and the wealth it can offer to you, and you want that, and I get that. And the thing about it is, they stop there. You mentioned the word assimilation.
Sure. And we don't assimilate. We'll come back to that after the break.
Yeah.
It's time for break. Let's go for a break and then come back and continue the discussion. Thank you, Ram.
We have expanded our clinics from one small clinic to 7 community clinics across the greater Houston and Port Arthur areas.
My name is Dr. Spencer Wood, and our goal is to provide high quality, affordable care for the community.
इब्न सिना में प्राइमरी केयर डॉक्टर्स के अलावा बहुत सारे स्पेशलिस्ट भी अवेलेबल है, जैसे कि कार्डियोलॉजी, डर्मेटोलॉजी, साइकेट्री, पोडाइट्री, न्यूरोलॉजी, नेफ्रोलॉजी और दीगर स्पेशलिस्ट मौजूद है जो आपकी सेहत की टेक केयर कर सकते हैं.
We are providing services like preventive care, including exams and dental cleanings.
Counseling and psychotherapy. If medicine taken properly can give a good life.
इब्न सीना की सर्विसेज जो मेडिकल सर्विसेज से शुरू हुई थी, वो एक्सपेंड हुई मेडिकल, डेंटल, डायग्नोस्टिक, स्पेशलिटी केयर एंड मेंटल हेल्थ सर्विसेज. हमने स्पेशली मेंटल हेल्थ सर्विसेज सिंस लास्ट 1 ईयर से एक्सपेंड की है.
Welcome back. Our second guest is also here, and let me introduce you to our second guest, Mr. Nasrul Rupani. Mr. Rupani, Assalamu alaikum. Mr. Rupani is the chairman of Ibn Sina Foundation, which is a very large, not-for-profit healthcare, I would say, system for a lot of people in the city of Houston. And I think you guys have about 80,000 encounters, provide a lot of services, including pediatric, medicine, dental, and recently started mental health services, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And one of the reasons you are here today is that I personally am very impressed with the services you provide. I'm very impressed, especially with the mental health services, since this is my passion. Judge also visited your center just a little bit ago, I think a few weeks or so ago. Very impressive. How do you do it? How do you come up with the funding to do it? Tell me a little bit about that.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ibn Sina started basically about almost 19 years ago with a few friends getting together, looking at the need of the community, that we saw a lot of suffering, and very low-income families could not afford medical services. So we started about 19 years ago. A few friends got together and about very small clinic, and I think with the community support and community, I would say great support from the community has really helped us grow to a point here today that we are this year going to surpass 75,000
Wow.
outpatient
It's very
visits,
impressive.
in 5 different locations in 7 buildings. That's really servicing in across the board, one-stop shop that really caters the community need.
Mhm. So that's very important. Why? Because when you talk about mental health, there are a lot of people who cannot afford mental health. It's much easier for me to say, oh, you need to have some mental health, but where do they go? So Ibn Sina is one of those entities people can go, subsidized rating, very cheap, and if they don't have money, they don't even have to pay. They can get medications free, which is very important. And what I've noticed in addition to that is that you focus a lot on childhood growth and the parenting and what the mothers can do and what the kids can do. You have a lot of schools in Pakistan, Gilgit-Baltistan, and I actually visited this year some of his schools, so I was very impressed. So tell me, how did you think about mental health? What was the vision behind mental health and expansion in your services?
As you know, I was very much involved in human development for last almost 20 years. And when we started this children's clinic at Ibn Sina, we saw that the lot of refugees who are arriving into Houston and a lot of new immigrants who are arriving into the Houston area were all coming into the southwest area around the clinic. And when we saw the children and mothers suffering, that they were already had challenges when they were in their countries, when they arrive here, they're going to the same anxiety and mental health issues when they're coming to the clinic. So we saw that the impact of mother mental health condition was really impacting the child.
Absolutely.
And that really, I would say, really encouraged me to see how I can play a role
I'm
where
very
we
glad.
can really look at mother and child relation,
Together,
because
right?
child is mother's reflection.
Mhm.
If mother is going through anxiety and depression, it's automatically impacts the child's growth
And there are
development.
studies about that. There are different studies. One study has shown that if mother has depression, the IQ of the child is about 20 pounds low. Why? Because the mother is unable to take care of herself, subsequently the expected child also. So this is very important. Also, studies show that if all the 50% of the mental illnesses start before the age 14, so in childhood, about 75% start before the age 24, which is actually the new childhood these days. We used to call 18 and less kids, but now even 24 and less are semi-kids, right?
Yeah.
So coming to you, Judge, when you were in the school board, mental illness was a problem? People talk about it, or what? Or just say, oh, no, we don't need to discuss that, just hush hush.
See, actually, in my opinion, school districts, there are school districts out there that don't want to really talk much about it because they feel like it's going to bring a stigma, or if you go to this school district, this is a major issue. And there are some people are trying to address certain in a peripheral level, nothing going inside. Yeah. And so when it was an eye-opener when I went to Fort Bend County, our jail population, coming back to the adult population, we come to find out 20% of those jail population, they should not
Actually, they say Harris County is the largest inpatient, Harris County Jail is the largest inpatient psychiatric unit.
That's right.
About 10,000, 9,000, which is reduced now to 8,000.
Yeah.
But still,
yeah.
huge.
So the point is 20% of those inmates never should be in a jail.
Yeah,
they should
have
be
mental
getting
illness.
help. And that was an eye-opener for me. And obviously with a number of changes, we are trying to identify more people and we are trying to provide help whatever the way we can, but we wanted to bring this as a discussion item, create an effort where we can, the community understand, the stakeholders understand, it's important we talk about it. And so that's where when you're reaching out, and I know that has always been your passion, and I'm so thankful. And that's what it is. Fort Bend County is blessed with so many wonderful people,
Completely
so many experts. And as a county judge, it's my job. I thought, you know what, if I'm not an expert, if I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not going to be one anyway. And so why
We're
don't
not
you
putting any pressure on you to be a psychiatrist.
yeah. So my point is, it's only common sense to partner with this organization and also partner with a person who understands these things. That's the reason why I'm glad I welcome you to
Yes,
Texana.
I remember we came to your home. Thank you for welcoming me to Texana.
Right.
And before you even took oath, we were at your home talking about what can we do for mental
Correct.
health. I remember that day. So, I mean, I remember the passion.
Right. And so I know that it is, mental health is our discussion item. At the same time, I wanted to touch for your viewers, another issue we have noticed is human trafficking.
Which is related to mental
Which
health.
is
And actually,
related.
Houston is the second largest in terms of human trafficking. And I'm glad you touched about it because while we're talking about it, Houston is the second largest hub of human trafficking because of the border with Mexico and
That's
I-10 corridor.
And 59 is a feeder.
Yes.
And which
59
straight go to the border.
And goes to Canada also. So it's big. And the problem with human trafficking is, one thing I would like to clear for our viewers is, a lot of time people feel that human trafficking would happen only to women. Not true. 40% of human trafficking are men, boys. Also, the 60% women or the other people who it happens, a lot of them are local U.S. citizens.
That's right.
Not everybody is an immigrant or from this country or that country. They can be U.S. citizens also. How does that happen? Because what we see, we have a human trafficking program. We see that these kids are perhaps they run away from home and somebody's taking their identity.
It's even get better. And we had a couple of briefings from FBI. And of course, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but what I learned from it is they're no more, they're focusing just on runaway people.
Yeah.
And I tell you the reason, because you see, when you go and buy a pound of drug, cocaine, they can only sell a pound of. And it is
for one time.
One time. And it's not safe to travel with them.
Correct.
But getting a human, they could sell over and over and over. And they are focusing in school. There are cases where in Fort Bend County, kids were targeted and being taken out. The thing about it, these days they are intentional about it. And what they're doing is they could pick any kid. It could be your daughter, my daughter, somebody else's.
Yeah.
And so they work on this person for a
they look at the vulnerabilities.
Right.
They look at the whole
so they
picture.
work on it. And once they turn 18, they could simply walk out of your house, nothing you can do.
Yeah.
And so what happened, these situations, that's why I always say that parents need to know what is going on in their kids' life and where they are going, who their friends are.
There's
And
nothing wrong about it.
Right. There are cases where in schools, the sports figures are so popular,
Right.
and they used
Cheerleaders.
the guys,
No, yeah.
and they used those guys as their agents, and they
Because people are impressed with them. People will do anything they will say.
That's exactly right. And so they're
very
recruiting that way. And so the point is, this is another thing people need to be aware of. I mean, it is so important to know where your children are, what they're doing, and who their friends are. And because there is no it is going to affect
it can affect anybody.
Anybody.
So coming from that segue, we feel, and a lot of people feel, that mental illness is not common in Southeast Asians. We were talking about it earlier. I feel, the judge feels, it's the same. Actually, maybe even more in our culture because we don't talk about it. So what do you think about spreading information, education, knowledge about mental illness from mosques, churches, temples, wherever people go for worship, some basic information? What do you think about that?
So, according to what our experience is recently, that we are seeing that South Asian communities are more vulnerable than even the Americans, because our children are living a dual life.
Yeah,
that's right.
Because really we have a gap between our
we have moved here, but our
right?
mind is still not here. Our mind is still in South Asian country, wherever we are.
So there's a gap between the parents and the children, and that gap is also needs to be addressed, and we need to, I think, train or guide our parents how to address and how to really handle our youth community children, because they are just living dual life. They live different homes,
very important
and they're living out. So they are more vulnerable than the local communities, and that's our challenges that we are seeing. that we are not addressing this. And I think, to me, we need to take it as an epidemic and an emergency.
Fully
This is an
agree.
emergency.
Fully agree. So see, this is the problem with a program like this. When you have two people who are so educated, when you have two people who are so passionate, we can go on and on and on,
Yeah.
but my program time is over.
Over,
So
okay.
we have to continue it another time.
Yeah.
What we talked about today, what is the theme of this program is mind and body. Our theme is to educate people about psychiatric illnesses, mental illnesses, talk about that, bring some information, bring some knowledge, and continue that. This is the first episode of that program. We will continue to have this program every week, every Saturday, 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central, and repeat on Sunday. Keep watching. Thank you.